live from Sister Basebone Studio. Urban Teachers Lounge is a platform for bridging the gap between educational scholarship and classroom teachers. Voices will include teachers, administrators, educational scholars, community members, and activists.
Hey everybody, welcome to Urban Teachers Lounge. I'm your host, G. Funmilayo DeVoe. This podcast is unapologetically for Black teachers, unapologetically by Black teachers. The purpose of the program is to bridge the gap between educational scholarship and classroom teachers. Today, I'm talking from the dome. We got to get ready to go back to school. Some of y'all are already in school. Let's have this conversation right quick. So go and grab your cup of coffee or whatever you need before you go back. Let's go. All right, y'all. So the summer is over. Some of y'all still have a couple more days of summer. Enjoy your last few days. Last year is over. Yesterday is over, right? So I want to talk about, first of all, let me be very frank. This podcast, I'm speaking in my eldership in a classroom, as a classroom teacher. I have lost track. I say this every year. Every time I do a podcast, and every school year, actually. Don't know how many years I've been teaching. I'm going to say somewhere about 17, 18 years, right? I've been fortunate enough to teach in 3 different states, so I've seen some different things. But today I'm speaking in a role that I want to move towards, and that is as a teacher mentor. So this podcast specifically is for all of us who are going back into a K-12 classroom. Particularly, I teach high school, so I might talk from that level. However, elementary teachers need to be ready. Middle school teachers need to be ready, as well as our high school teachers. So I'm going to try to stay focused because, like everybody else, I'm doing lesson plans. I'm getting my mind ready and units and, as I like to call them, processes. I forgot the other word that I used. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. We have to get procedures and processes in place, right? But I hope, if you have not, I hope that you enjoyed enough of your summer to recuperate from what is going on in the world as of 3 minutes ago, what happened last year, and what you're walking into. So I'm going to speak to you from a position of, I already know you know your content. So I'm not even talking to nobody about content. What I am going to talk about is what I'd like to teach in my class this year for the first couple of weeks, definitely the first couple of days, mindfulness and mattering. So, my wife said I should go ahead and get some M&Ms and pass out to the children. I don't know if they'll make it to the children because I do like M&Ms. I'm just saying. But mindfulness and mattering. So my message today, I'm speaking as a teacher mentor. My message today is be mindful of what you're doing, what you're saying, and understand, 1, that you matter, right? And 2, these babies need to know that they matter. So we can go on the Black Lives Matter thing. Okay, yes, Black lives do matter, and everybody want to have an argument, and I'm teaching that this year. I'm very excited. I'm going to teach that book, When They Call You a Terrorist. But we need to understand our role. We are very, 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 very important to changing the world. And it really does begin, I think, in the classroom. So mindfulness and mattering. I will add a couple of references. You can look up mindfulness, K-12. Some of that, of course, is the breathing thing, and it's very necessary. But I want to take that a little bit deeper, right? And mattering. So I'm going to ask you today, think, as we're going into this new year, if you're already there, you're still at the early stages, I believe in reflective practitionership. What does that mean? I mean that we should all not only go into the classroom and do what we do, change the world, help these babies get to the next level, but I also believe that we need to reflect on how we did it, what we should have done, could have done, and check ourselves, okay? So I'm going to live with 4 questions and a refresher. 4 questions and a refresher. Number 1, what do you teach? What do you teach? Number 2, who do you teach? I'm in preacher mode, right? And I ain't no preacher. Number 3, what is your bias about? Just stop right there. What is your bias? And number 4, where are the kids in all of this that you got going on? Because some of y'all, like me, tomorrow, you're going to walk into a building and you're going to be responsible for 100 to 130 kids. Some of you elementary teachers, I know y'all might have a whole 35, 40 kids. But middle school and high school, we got a lot of souls we responsible for. So I'm going to repeat. No. And then question, did I say it already? Question number 4 is, where are the kids? So I'm going to repeat, because this is what this podcast is today. It's straight out the dome. It's straight what I'm feeling, my passion, all of that. What do you teach? 2, who do you teach? 3, what are your biases? 4, where are the kids? And then I answer that question with your bonus. You're there for the kids. Most of us, I could venture out and say 90+% of us came into the classroom for the kids. Somewhere along the line, we get caught up in processes and procedures. That's what I was trying to remember. Processes and procedures. We get caught up in the processes and procedures, and we forget what we're there for. So last week, I had the opportunity to go to a district-wide professional development. And, you know, we all got our own conversations about district-wide professional development, right? Because how much of that stuff we already know, how much of that stuff we ain't ever going to use in our classroom, and how much of that stuff is even relevant to our babies, to who we teach, right? But I was blessed, and I'm going to share this blessing with you. I happened to walk into a class where an elder teacher was there. And I want you to really think about this, particularly as Black teachers. We have a Black educator legacy. We have elder teachers that fought fights just as powerful, if not more stronger, more stronger than what we have to fight. And they left us a legacy. The problem is we don't know it that often. What did you learn in your educational classes, right? Did you learn about Black scholarship, Black teachers, Black principals, Black leaders that were successful during Jim Crow, during segregated schools? Let's go back to them. Do you understand the Black teacher networks that were in place? Here I am in 2019 trying to create a network of Black teachers so we can share. I can share scholarship with you. I can share stories as other educators. Man, I got a list of people that we're going to be talking to this year that I've already asked to bless this particular mic, right? But this particular woman, her name was Miss Ellen, and she was somebody's mama, meaning that whoever I think was going to do the presentation made a way for their mama to do it. This woman spoke from the position of her eldership. She was 65 years old. She had taught for so many years in K-12. She also taught on a college level. And like most diehard teachers that know that this is your destiny in life, this is what God gave us to do. Hallelujah. She retired, and guess what? She came back into the classroom as a substitute teacher. So walking in this space, it was necessary for me to feel her eldership, right? We are not teaching alone. We are not, I understand this U.S. America was built on Benjamin Franklin individualism, right? But we as Black people, we as people of color, we as indigenous people, we are a communal people. And we thrive and we do much better when we work together, when we sit at the feet of our elders, when we respect them, when they respect us, right? Because I'm not going to not say, because, y'all know what I'm talking about. There are some elders that we just pray for and keep it moving. But there are a lot of elders that just want to remind us. So what I loved about that session is she said, every time she was instructing us on what the lesson was around literacy, because I'm an English teacher, right? She said, but I know that you already know this. I'm just refreshing your memory. I'm just reminding you, right? That's mindfulness. When you go into this type of PD, and I know it was God or whoever you want to call it, whatever name you got, the universe or the Damar is what I got, right? You must know that we are in these places and spaces for a reason, right? So the mere fact that she did not insult my intelligence, because we feel this going into PD, we're like, oh my God, they're not saying this. I do this every year, and yet you paid somebody to say this. No. She came from an elder position and said, I know you know this. I'm here to refresh your memory. I'm here to encourage you to go on and to remember why you did this, right? Remember why you did this. And in the middle of this thing, I just felt being so full that I wanted to cry, right? I just wanted to say, okay, last year was hard, but it's a new year. And it was hard for me. This summer, the little bit of the news that I've heard is hard. But if it's hard for me, I say it all the time, if it's hard for you and I as adults, what do you think it is for our children? So let's go back to the first question I asked. What do you teach? You should know your content as an elder teacher. And when I say that, I'm not saying you're perfect, but you should have some passion about what you teach, because that should be your joint. Like when I teach English, so anything word related, some music, the way somebody said a poem, quotes, I'm big on quotes. Any of that, I love that, and I bring it straight into the classroom. You should know your content, because it's necessary for you to know your content in order to teach culturally responsively, right? It's important to know your content. So if you know your stuff, all you're doing is plugging in modern situations, modern things to help our babies learn what they need to learn so they can go on to their next level. What do you teach? You should know this, right? Number 2, who do you teach? That's where I want to live right now for a minute. Who's in your classroom? I created this podcast particularly for public school teachers, teachers that teach predominantly children of color. So that includes charter schools, and I'm not going to go off on a tangent on charter schools, but I'm going to specifically say the big umbrella is those who teach children of color. Children of color live in this society. Last week, I got a phone call from one of my friends who lives in Cali. She sent, and the way that actually it was a text message. The way that she sent the text message, and I read it, I said something going on, because she was like, "How you doing? Things are going on, and who's reached out to people?" And it was like the way that she said it, I was like, "Oh, something happened," because last week, like many other teachers, I was trying to get my processes and procedures together, right? Trying to get my classroom together, trying to get my bulletin board together, trying to, wipe off the seats. I don't know why they sticky. Anyway, school been over. Okay. right? So I was in that mode. I didn't look at the news last week. So I missed a few activities that happened. One in particular was the foolery about the parents that were arrested, 600 to 800. I need to do my research on that. But nevertheless, you waited till these parents took their babies to school, and then ICE came in and arrested them. We need to be in solidarity. That's my dog. Hopefully he'll shut up because I'm outside recording, right? Anyway, I missed that. I'd already known about the dude who drove 10 happy hours from Dallas, Texas to El Paso to shoot up some people at the Walmart. Like, I was aware of that. I was aware of some of this other foolery that seems to bombard us over and over again. I was aware of that, but I had missed a very important part. So some of us teach predominantly children of color. And that might be, Latinx children. It might be Black children. It might be, different levels of immigrant children. And I'm saying that in the sense of people from different countries that might fall in your classroom. Are you aware of what's going on outside? So this goes back. Who do you teach? Who are them folks in your classroom? And do you know the struggle that it took for them to get there? So I'm not talking about the deficit mindset foolishness. I'm not talking about, we all hungry. Hell, I'm looking for some oodles and noodles to pack for my lunch for next week, too. Matter of fact, I got 2 packs already in my desk at work. I dropped them off just in case. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the deeper issues. I'm talking about the emotional, the trauma, right? We've coined social emotional learning, trauma-informed care. Let's get deep and real on that. There's some real issues and some real things that our babies will be meeting us on Monday morning. That would be tomorrow for me. They're going to meet us tomorrow. They coming as they are. Are you ready? Who you teach? Do you know, and I'm not talking about the test score story. I don't give a damn, I said it, about test scores, and I don't give a damn about grades. Why? Because they most certainly do not accurately portray the wisdom and the genius of our children. They don't. It don't. Okay, I'm not going down that road. Who do you teach? Be mindful of who you teach. Who's in your classroom? Who's struggling with housing security, with food insecurity, housing insecurity, food insecurity? Who's struggling with religious situations, meaning their religion is fine, but the world perceives it wrong? Because in this great place that we live in, you have freedom of religion as long as you're some form of Christian. Okay. That moves into, the next question. But before I get there, who's coming in your classroom? Non-binary, non-gender conforming students, or they come from homes that are non-binary, non-gender conforming students, parents, communities. Who you teaching? Okay. Then the next thing, most important, here we go. What's your bias? Well, because I'm going to call out some Black people. Some of us Black people, we have a portion of privilege. And we, y'all can mama say, oh, how soon we forget. Because you done came up, you done moved on up to the east side. Woo, we're moving on up, right? Okay. But you done forgot your beginnings, your storytelling. I was talking to one of my closest friends today, and we were talking about the necessity of storytelling and how it's important to share our experiences so that we can not only learn from them, we can help other people learn from them. We can strengthen each other. We can be empathetic, sympathetic. All these words that we can help people to get to their next level. Storytelling. That's a part of culturally responsive, culturally relevant. If you know that our dominant language and our dominant ways of living is communal, yet you continue to judge us as individuals. Some of y'all might need to think about that thing. I'm only giving you reflective things because we going to battleground tomorrow. And you're not battling the kids. Don't get that straight. You're battling a society that expects education to solve the social ills of this country. I said it. So who's in your class and what's your bias? Check that at the door. Let's be honest about who you are, where you come from. It's nothing wrong. Don't ever be ashamed of how you got to the places where you are. But I just need you to understand that your biases can put off other people and it can isolate our children. And at this moment, we need to, this goes back to mattering. We need to build them up and show them that they matter. But you need to know that you matter and your positionality matters so that you can pour that into somebody else. Come on, somebody. So we know that scripture, some of y'all, you know that scripture that says you can't, I don't even know if it's a scripture, but we're going to say it is. You can't give from an empty vessel. So I hope this summer, as I've had to do, I hope this summer you sat back. You reflected on what you did, what you didn't do, what you liked, what you didn't like. You reflected on your biases. You reflected on this world, right? And you getting ready not only for the academic piece, because I'm going to say like that elder said, I know you know your academic piece. I'm not challenging you as a math teacher, as a science teacher, as a language arts teacher, as a history teacher. I'm not challenging you on that. What I'm challenging you on is your ability to reflect on you, your biases, your positionality, and also be mindful of the children that you are in charge of, that you are not in charge of, but are in your charge, are in your care, are in none of these kids that are coming into your classroom this year were by accident. Now, you need to work through that because they need you, and guess what? You need them too. You need them to help you to remember not to look outside of your biases. You need them to help to challenge your old thinking, right? It's nothing worse than being in a black school with black leaders, and yet we do more harm to the black teachers, and we do more harm to our black children or Latinx children. I said it. Let me repeat that. It's nothing worse to me. This is me speaking because I told you I'm from the Dome today. It's nothing worse than being in a predominant place of color, right? And the leadership looks like the people that come in, the students. Yet we do more harm than the world does. I said it. Check yourself and your biases. Because I teach from a perspective of this. I need somebody. I'm going to love these children. I'm going to challenge these children. I'm going to give them everything that I have, the same way I expect a teacher to do that for my own blood, meaning the children that I'm releasing to high school tomorrow. Because we can't, this is that village mind. So if we're not taking accountability and responsibility on how we treat, how we talk, how we handle our children, If we're not reflecting on that, then we need to come on now. So what are your biases? And where are the places where we need to rethink that thing? Okay? Then the last thing, where are your kids in all of this processes and procedures? Where your kids at? Let me rephrase. When you was doing all that process and procedures, how much of that is going to benefit the children and how much of that is benefiting, something else? I said it. So that leads us back to the bonus. We're there for the kids. And until we are moved, meaning that the great universe says you've done all that you can do and it's time for you to go to a next level, we are responsible for these children and we need to be accountable to these children. Because guess what? Let's go back to where I started. There were some elder teachers that were responsible and accountable to us. Whether you had a black teacher in your experience in K-12 or not, there were always black scholars, black teachers, black people that fought this fight long before us. It's time for us to acknowledge them and learn from them and take the things that we can do. And, like we say nowadays, remix, right? So you take what you know. It's like, okay, this was good stuff. Let me remix it and make it relevant for today, for these babies. So with that, I'm thinking tomorrow, as I was thinking about the little, icebreaker and how you going to introduce it. So for me, I think I'm living with Jay-Z right now, right? So that public service announcement, allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ho. Okay, I don't know the words, but that's the way I want to come in tomorrow, because the first thing I need to know about these children, more importantly, is give me a pulse check. Where you at? What you dealing with? Right? Now there are levels. There are being considering child development and yeah. How you get to that point. But we need to know the pulse of these children, because they coming in with a summer that some of it was cool. Some of us went swimming. I ain't even go swimming this year. Some people went to the beach. Some people was selling water outside. So they can get some school supplies. I said it. So let us think about that as we are preparing. Here's what the last thing, I told you this was actually going to be short today. The last thing, two things I have. One, I've been telling my friends, because this is going to be a formula, and I'll add this to the end of the podcast. This is a formula that I learned at the beginning of my PhD journey. So my program definitely is organizational change, right? Social justice leadership change. And one of the things that I love, and I'm going to add it to you, it's called the organizational change formula. Now, I don't know if that's the exact words, but I'll get it to you. Here is the formula. I'm going to put this in the front of my classroom because I want my children to live here all year. This is the formula that we're going to live on. This is the change formula that we're going to live on. It's D as in dog, times V as in Victor, times F as in Frank, is greater than R for resistance. So let me give it to you again. D times V times F is greater than R. Now, the D is, what are you dissatisfied with right now? Last year was whack for me on multiple levels. I'm talking about going back in the classroom. Let's keep it 100, because I'm trying to get us ready for tomorrow or whenever some of y'all going back to school. And I'm encouraging some of y'all that already started. So what are you dissatisfied with? Whatever that is. Times V, what is the vision for something new? You know you don't like this. We didn't complain about this long enough. Okay, amen, hallelujah. Now let's shift to vision. What do you want to happen? V. Here's the tricky part. Times F. What are your first steps? Because I am definitely a visionary. I am a creative. I can think about stuff like this. Woo. I'm good at that. The question is, I can't do it all at the same time. You can't make, if stuff was toe up for 4 years, in 4 minutes, you ain't gonna fix it. So then we have to be honest with first steps. What are the first steps to move towards a vision to leave from my dissatisfaction? And I need all that to be greater than the resistance. Now, let's talk about resistance, because I shared this with my friend today. Let's talk about us personally, individually. What are you personally dissatisfied? What is your personal vision? And what are your first steps to get to that? All of that needs to be greater than that little conversation that we have in our head that say you can't do it, what makes you think that this is your resistance, that inner little thing that we allow to consume us and not let us go forward. See, we got to deal with this change thing first, right? Then I'm going to take this into my classroom because this is what I want to introduce to my students tomorrow. What you mad about? What's your vision for something different? And what is your processes to get to that? First steps. You can't do everything. Maybe you could just do 2 things. If I get these 2 things done, and you have to understand it has to be greater than that little voice. It has to be greater than all the haters, right? When people saying little crazy stuff to you, it got to be greater than that. This way you got to be courageous, right? Because in order to change, you got to be courageous. And courageous is hard because when you're courageous, that means that you actually feel something, right? You have feelings. So if you deny your feelings, if you act like, oh, this didn't hurt my feelings, oh, this what, okay, if you deny that, then how courageous are you? And that means you ain't ready for change. I said it. I'm just getting us ready. And then the last thing, this is all I'm saying. The last thing is a part of my, like I said, trying to get ready, get my kids ready for welcome to back, right? I teach big kids. So one of the things, I'm moving. I got to reach over here for my other book. Hold on. Okay, here we go. One of the things that I want to deal with, I think I'm going to do this tomorrow, it's called a soundtrack to your life activity, right? So I found this. Somebody sent it to me. You know how teachers do. We kind of mooch off a whole bunch of stuff. Anyway, it's called a soundtrack to your life activity. And 2 things happen. One, you get the kids to draw a CD cover, right? And then they obviously going to present it to us and tell us why that's important. But then they need to have 12 songs. That's your life activity. So, before you ask kids to do stuff, did you do it? Do you do it? So I wrote down my soundtrack. 12 songs. What's your 12 songs? I'm going to share my 12 songs because I want you to think about your 12 songs. And then I want you to ask your kids. And maybe, you might have to get 3 songs for some kids. And you might have to get 12 for others. And some of them, you might have to tell them this is a part 1 because you got too many songs. Like, I probably got 1 million songs. But my 12 songs land here. Lose Yourself. Lovely Day, the one by Jill Scott, of course, even though I do love Bill Withers. Yes. Black Ivory Soul. That's Angelique Kidjo. He's Preparing Me. Baby, when everything falls in my life, I have lived by this particular song for a long, long, long time. He's Preparing Me, Daryl Coley. Because you got to remember, we got to remember why we're doing this thing. How Bad Do You Want It? That's a song that came from the Fast and the Furious. And then, of course, I can't go without having Kendrick Lamar. So I got 2 songs for him. Be Humble, right? And then DNA. Remember where this came from, right? Then I got my, when I'm just trying to think in a sentimental mood, right? So that's, of course, John Coltrane. Then The Revolution in Me, Gil Scott-Heron. The revolution will not be televised. We got to remember that. And I told you already, Jay-Z is on there. Public service announcement. Allow me to reintroduce myself. When you walk in that building tomorrow, you need to reintroduce yourself. Because some people been home all summer. Come on, now I'm talking about the kids. Some of them been home all summer and they forgot who you is. So I'm going to have to reintroduce who DeVoe is. Know the DeVoe. Okay. Then staying with Jay-Z, number 11 is Brush Your Shoulders Off. And then one of my new favorites, because I do love Cardi B, don't judge me, but I love that song, Be Careful With Me. That's my soundtrack. So I'm saying that because we need to move into a reflective practice. The world is moving fast. Everything, I missed this foolishness with in the news. I missed some stuff. You blink and something else done popped off. But we still have to be mindful. We have to know that we matter. And then we pour that into our kids. The content, if you know your content, we ain't even talking about that. We talking about why you became a teacher. Somebody said this in the meeting we was in last week. They said you didn't become a teacher just to teach English, just to teach math. No, you didn't. You became a teacher to change the world, right? To make the world better than what it was when you got here. That's what you came to do. So I'm gonna close out with that. Happy school year, happy new year. I know I was on a rant, but I warned you. So I want you to talk to me. You know, come to me. I got some ideas on people of how I'm gonna get back to my weekly podcast like I've done in the past. I'm glad you were here. I'm glad you listened to this rant, right? I am gonna add a little bit of stuff that I mentioned, like the mindful classrooms, mattering. I got that mattering. There's a whole chapter that, I love, Bettina Love. There's a whole chapter in her book where she talks about mattering, right? So I hope you share this podcast with your community of teachers specifically. This particular podcast was for teachers, those of us that's going on the front line tomorrow or next week. Definitely your scholars, your activists, community folks. I love to hear from you. Follow me. You know where I'm at. Facebook, Instagram, Podomatic, YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. Until we meet again, peace, power, and progress.